Rachel was known as the life of the party, a beautiful, carefree 24-year-old who seemed to defy the ravages of time. Her vibrant energy and youthful charm were a force of nature. Her friends admired her raw beauty, and strangers were captivated by her blithe spirit. She danced through life, her laughter infectious, her smile dazzling, and relished every moment of her wild adventures with friends. Rachel lived for the night, and fall was her favorite season. She enjoyed experiencing the bounty of beautiful changing, colorful leaves that fell gracefully from the trees, and the air getting more of a crispness to it. But what she loved the most is that autumn meant that it started to get dark earlier. The sooner darkness fell, the sooner it was time to go out and party. The shifting season meant it was still warm enough to dress in provocative clothing, but cool enough to make things a little more intriguing. Rachel, the youngest of 6 children to very religious and strict parents, had always wanted to break free. She stuck out like a sore thumb amongst her older, homeschooled siblings who lived to please their parents, always listening to them, and all went on to live traditional, simple, quiet lives. But not Rachel. As soon as Rachel had the opportunity to get away from her stifling lifestyle, uncaged, she flew free like an untamed bird, and experienced every delight that she felt she had been kept from, to her pleasure. She left no stone unturned. She did everything, living in a shameless, reckless abandon. And she missed nothing. Rachel took everything lightly and had no regrets. Despite an upbringing that she had distanced herself from, Rachel was still in contact with her family and spoke to her parents and 5 siblings every week. While the rest of her family all remained in the safe haven of a small town in Oregon, Rachel lived in Los Angeles, where she had abruptly moved to right after her homeschool graduation at 16. She had lived there ever since, working in fashion as a sought-after designer, which she'd always had an eye and talent for from a young girl. She would hide her secret fashion magazines and sneakily watch popular fashion shows on the one old television they had in the basement. She was a quick and eager study, working on hundreds of projects alone in an unused shed that was on her parents' 18-acre farm. Rachel's conservative parents constantly voiced their concerns about her non-stop, unruly lifestyle, always imagining the worst of tragedies would befall their baby girl with her revolving door of male admirers and never-ending carousing. She recently promised them that she would begin to tone things down dramatically by the end of that year. But in the meantime, she continued to calmly assure them that she was fine, living life to the full while remaining safe. But was she? One chilly night, as the full moon shone brightly in the black sky, Rachel, while getting ready for a rave, stopped to admire her own gorgeous face. She really was a knockout beauty. Even though she was a bold, outspoken person, she always humbly accepted compliments in regards to her looks. Her face was so pretty, it was almost too bad that tonight's soirée was also a masquerade, so she'd be donning a mask that she'd had a fellow designer pal create, covering part of her lovely face. She shrugged, breaking herself out of her trance, and continued getting dressed for what she felt like, for some reason, would be an epic night. Soon her Uber app chimed, signaling that her driver had arrived, and she rushed out of her large 13th-floor studio apartment to go to the long-anticipated masquerade rave that a new colleague was throwing at one of the most popular clubs in LA this year. Anybody who was anybody in the fashion industry would be there, including some of Hollywood's most elite entertainers. And she couldn't contain her excitement. Rachel walked into the party looking stunning, immediately catching many looks of awe as she sauntered about. She spent the evening talking to old friends and making fast new ones, imparting in witty banter, vivacious laughter, and several frisky cocktails. As the clock struck 2 a.m., the frolicking was starting to slow. The end of the night was always a little sad for her, but what rejuvenated her spirits was the promise of another event the next evening. As Rachel was walking out, waiting for her driver, she was approached by a partygoer dressed in rags, their entire face covered. Before any words were spoken, the frame of the person revealed it was a woman. Slim and lithe, with long, wiry fingers trembling, the woman placed a small plastic-wrapped item into the palm of her hand. Rachel almost recoiled, as there was an oddity to the unknown woman, and she immediately felt unnaturally on defense. The woman, sensing Rachel's discomfort, quickly spoke, her voice quiet and raspy but passionate. You didn't get one of these earlier? Sasha had the party staff pass these out to all of the VIP guests. I didn't want you to miss it. Rachel looked into her hand closer, and it was a plastic-wrapped gummy candy. It was green in color and in the shape of a butterfly, which made sense as Sasha, the host, had dressed as a butterfly for the masquerade. Rachel smiled and opened the candy slowly, marveling at its sparkles. What does it do? She asked, looking at the hooded lady before her. The woman pondered before answering. You must try it. It'll change your life, Rachel. As she couldn't see the strange woman's face, she couldn't tell if she had smiled, but her voice sounded as if she was smiling. Rachel looked down at the candy again, as if to inspect it, moving it slowly in her hands. She looked up to ask the lady more details on the candy and how she knew her name, but the woman had vanished. Hey, Rachel said out loud, annoyed. She made a full circle, but the party was almost empty with the weird, cloaked woman nowhere in sight. Just then, Rachel's phone dinged and she promptly gathered herself, stuffing the gummy in her purse as she went out to meet her driver. In the car, Rachel thought about her candy encounter again. No stranger to substances on occasion, especially at these rave parties, Rachel wasn't opposed to indulging in psychedelics and being a little loose. However, in most cases, it was from someone she knew and trusted and never by herself. She almost didn't take it, but remembering how she'd told her folks that after this year was out, she'd be slowing down, she decided to try the enticing gummy. Popping it in her mouth as the car cruised down the almost empty Los Angeles streets, she counted the months she had left of her celebratory way of living. Winter would be coming soon, and she figured she'd best get everything out of her system now. She would be spending the last month of the year with her family, and wanted to continue to have her mindset of no regrets before she changed her ways. As Rachel crept into her tousled bed that early morning, she silently remarked how she didn't feel anything different after taking the gummy 2 hours ago. Damn, she thought. Oh well. She had an important meeting in several hours with one of her favorite clients, so she decided it best to drift off to sleep and put the letdown behind her. Maybe it was one of Sasha's friends playing games with her guests. It didn't really matter anyway. Rachel woke up with her head banging to her blaring alarm that morning. Jumping out of bed, she shuffled to her top-of-the-line coffee maker, starting her morning brew to help wake her up before her big meeting. After configuring her drink, she headed to the bathroom to take a shower before she stepped out of the house. Rachel had been rubbing her eyes since she'd risen. They were burning. She figured it was due to the severe lack of sleep from the night before. She'd went pretty hard and thought how her parents were right about her needing to calm down a bit. Rachel turned on her shower. While allowing the water to get hot, she doubled back to casually look in the mirror. What? She said aloud, her voice filled with alarm and confusion. Rachel's eyes were as red as juiced beets, and around the normally smooth and youthful skin were deep, discolored crow's feet. It's as if her eyes had aged 40 years overnight. Rachel shuddered and stumbled back. The shower now hot and filling the small bathroom with steam, she braced herself with the toilet and inched down carefully onto its seat. She put her head in her hands and took deep breaths. Was she dreaming? Was this real? She thought. Imagining she was in a crazy nightmare, Rachel stood up and laughed with uncertainty. She still had a critical appointment she'd had to attend and prided herself on being prompt. She took her shower, dressing with flair, and decided to wear her newly designed pair of diamond-encrusted sunglasses, a finished prototype as they were still in production before their launch next spring. Rachel's meeting was a big hit, just like she knew it would be. But she continued to fret over her skin. She knew she couldn't wear sunglasses forever and would have to get to the bottom of this. Maybe tomorrow would be better. That night she went to bed extra early, deciding to forego a lavish dinner party at a local artist's mansion that evening. The next morning, Rachel noticed more wrinkles etching themselves upon her once flawless skin. But now they were all over. Panic set in as she realized she was actually aging, and fast. Each day, her beauty faded a bit more, and the joie de vivre spirit within her started to wither. Desperate to halt the relentless march of time, Rachel spared no expense. She delved into expensive creams, serums, and makeup. She underwent laser therapy, but her skin continued to betray her. No matter what she tried, the wrinkles deepened and the skin even started to decay. Her hair lost its luster, and her once sparkling hazel eyes dulled. She was perplexed at what was causing her rapid decline, until one late night she remembered the party with the strange, cloaked woman. The candy. The gummy. Wow! She was stunned and cried at the sudden realization. But why would someone do this to her? Did she have enemies? Was there someone jealous? Was she being punished? These questions tumbled around her brain unanswered, causing her more distress. The cruel irony was that she had to stop going out altogether. The stares of strangers and the whispers of acquaintances would be too much to take. Her phone was ringing nonstop. It was unlike Rachel not to be at everything. She stopped taking calls from friends, colleagues, and associates, isolating herself from a world she once reveled in. Rachel's life became a melancholy existence. Her flesh was hard, brittle, flaking off, and started emitting an odor. She couldn't bear the reflection in the mirror, so she covered every reflective surface in her home, shunning even the sight of her own shadow. Her once bustling social media accounts grew silent, and her vibrant Instagram was now a desolate wasteland of forgotten memories. Rachel, though distracted, continued to work with her clients using virtual methods, but soon even that became overwhelming too. It was an act of desperation when she created a GoFundMe page, citing a mysterious, debilitating illness that had stolen her vitality. Everyone was concerned, but they couldn't reach her. The Rachel they once knew had faded away, leaving only a glimpse of her former self. A recluse in her own home, Rachel survived by ordering everything in. Food, groceries, and necessities were delivered to her door, and she ventured out only in the darkest hours of the night, when she was unlikely to encounter anyone who might recognize her. The vibrant, carefree party girl was no more. Rachel's apartment became her prison, a place where her once exuberant spirit dwindled to a mere whisper. She would sit in the dimly lit room, reminiscing about her glory days, while the cruel mirror she hid from cast judgmental glares. Her beauty had abandoned her, and with it her confidence. Her laugh, once a beacon of joy, had turned into a melancholic echo of happier times. She was a specter in her own life, watching it pass by through the filter of isolation. Rachel's nights were sleepless, plagued by haunting dreams of her former self, dancing and laughing at the wildest parties. In the light of day, she was trapped in the suffocating grip of her menacing transformation. As Rachel's world grew smaller and dimmer, the outside world continued to thrive. She had become a bitter hermit who had once been the embodiment of youth and vitality. Friends had long given up on her, and there were no more clients, all assuming she had vanished into obscurity. Even though Rachel was immensely talented and her work was loved, they had to find other designers to work with as her silence remained unbroken. Rachel, the beautiful, carefree party girl, was a ghost of her past, a victim of an insidious curse that had stolen her essence and left her a hollow shell of her former self. In the depths of her seclusion, she yearned for a way to break free from the horror that had, in fact, changed her life.
In a cozy, offbeat, superstitious town nestled amidst a sea of crimson and golden leaves, an unsettling legend had been passed down through generations. Every fall, as the air grew crisp and the trees surrendered their fiery foliage, the townsfolk would lock their doors and windows, for they knew that the monster would soon stir. As the first leaf ignited in the flicker of a bonfire, the creature awoke. Its existence was only whispered about in hushed tones around dimly lit firesides. They called it the leaf burner. It was said to be a grotesque, otherworldly being, born from the ashes of countless autumn blazes long ago. The creature, drawn to the scent of burning leaves, would emerge with a malevolent hunger. Its appearance was like a living nightmare, shrouded in swirling smoke and ember-like eyes. It moved silently, its presence only revealed by the pungent scent of charred leaves that seemed to thicken the air. The townsfolk had devised a gruesome tradition to protect themselves, putting a near end to the daunting attacks in everyone's yards. Each year, a brave soul would be chosen as the Autumn Guardian. They would stand vigil over the communal bonfire, tending to the flames throughout the night, ensuring the fire never went out. As long as the fire blazed in the middle of town, absent of leaves burning, it seemed to keep Leaf Burner at bay. It would stand at a visible distance, snarling, spewing sputum in rage and vengeance. Well, most of the time it would keep the beast away. There had been casualties. Poor victims that had let the firelight grow too dim and had been snatched by the gigantic monstrosity, then swiftly devoured. The town had learned since then and did everything in their power to make certain that the primal ghoul didn't harm another soul. Still, it was a dangerous sacrificial act to the one chosen to stand watch. One chilly October evening, young Sarah was selected as the Autumn Guardian. She was determined to prove her bravery and protect her town. As the sun set and the first leaves began to burn, the ominous smell filled the air. Soon, a gust of wind carried an eerie whisper through the trees, and the leaf burner emerged from the darkness. Sarah's heart pounded as she watched the creature approach. With trembling hands, she stoked the bonfire, making the flames dance higher and brighter. The monster hissed and recoiled, its ember-like eyes flickering in pain. It circled the fire, unable to extinguish the flames, its smoky form writhing in agony. Sarah knew she had to keep the fire alive until dawn. Hour after agonizing hour, she battled exhaustion and fear, maintaining the blazing guardian that shielded her town. As the first light of morning pierced the sky, Leafburner, defeated, vanished into the forest, swearing to return next fall. The townsfolk rejoiced in Sarah's bravery, grateful for her unwavering resolve in the face of the ancient terror. And so, the legend of the Leafburner continued to haunt their fall nights, but with a reminder that courage and a burning will to protect could keep even the darkest of horrors at bay, if only for that season.